Welcome to Sunspots, where we explore the many ways that the Holy Spirit is working in the people, places, ministries, and missions on the surface of the sun. That is, the Synod of the Sun. I'm Valerie Young, your Synod leader. My prayer is that you find inspiration, community, and connection in the sun.
This is Thomas Riggs, Administration and Communication Coordinator for Synod of the Sun. On today's episode of Sunspots, we listen in on a conversation between Zoë Garry and Ezequiel Herrera. Zoë is the Director of NOLA Wesley, an affirming campus ministry for the students of Tulane and Loyola Universities in New Orleans, and Director of the Labyrinth, a new worship community that is a pay-as-you-are-able coffee shop, also in New Orleans. Ezequiel Herrera is the Rio Grande Valley Evangelist for Mission Presbytery, and he's also the new worship community pastor of New Life Faith Community in McAllen. And although their ministry settings are really quite different, Zoë and Ezequiel find a great deal of commonality as they talk about the unique joys and challenges of leading a new worship community and how what they do requires patience, creativity, and a lot of love.
All right. Well, hello. Do you want to introduce who you are and your ministry quickly? Or
Sure. Well, I'm such an old-fashioned. I will always ladies first. You can tell. You can tell that I was born all right.
Okay. Well, my name is Reverend Zoë Garry. I run a new worshiping community in New Orleans, Louisiana, called the Labyrinth Cafe. The Labyrinth Cafe is a pay-what-you-can cafe that is set to service and the students of Loyola and Tulane Universities. So we do campus ministry. And what this looks like is we do weekly worships and dinners. So we have other churches in New Orleans that support us and are also affirming, that cook us dinner every Sunday. And this is great because students get a home cooked meal and it makes all our worships intergenerational. And then we also do several programming throughout the weeks. We do cross stitching, we do yoga. Tonight for our Lenten devotionals, we're doing pasanki, which is Ukrainian egg decorating. We do live music and several things with that. But yeah, we're a campus ministry and we are the only queer affirming ministry for Tulane and Loyola. So that's a big part of our identity and the community that we serve.
Well, sounds very interesting, all the things that you do. My ministry is not as exciting and with all the activities that you do. I am Ezequiel Herrera. I am what they call it, the Rio Grande Valley Evangelist. And I was born in the Dominican Republic, and I have spent most of my life in the U.S., in New York metro area. Okay. And then the last 6 or so years here in Texas, in 2.5, almost 3 years here in the Valley, South Texas. So we are roughly 10 minutes away from the Texas-Mexican border. So we are what really we call it a border town. And our ministry, we launched it back in the fall of 2019, but because of COVID, everything was shut down, including all the buildings, and especially the buildings where we were having our worship service, which was First Presbyterian Church of Mission. And we started with a Bible study Monday evening, along with a another pastor from Reynosa. He will come. Reynosa is the town in Mexico. The state of Tamaulipas is the closest city that we have in this area on the Mexican side, and then we start worshiping roughly in November of 2019. But again, COVID came and everything was just shelved. And during that period of time, my time was devoted pretty much in networking, getting to know the community, and just walking out and about. And there is something, at first it was kind of a secret, not because it was anything bad, but because of a little bit the uniqueness of what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
I bought myself a truck, a tractor lawnmower, weed whacker, and I start cutting and doing people's yard.
Wow.
So I became a pastor, lawnmower.
I mean, most pastors have to wear multiple hats. So,
well, I know, a Presbyterian pastor cutting people's yard is kind of a weird and awkward, right? But my goal with that was to get to know the neighbors, to get to know the people. And, in another setting, for instance, when I was in New York, my way to meeting people was either doing an ESL class for new immigrants or helping people to regularize their immigration status in the States, because I do have those skills. But here, things were completely different, and are completely different. So my way into getting to know the people, meeting them, and developing some sort of a relationship with them was offering my services as a landscaper. Well, not a landscaper, but landscaper sounds very sophisticated. Is
take it
mowing the lawn. Yeah. And the sun here is, I don't know, I think it's hotter than any place else.
Than the DR? Hotter than the DR?
Well, it is hot, but God, you have some sort of a respite. But here is really hard, hard and hot. So,
I was going to say, sorry. I was going to say, I also started working at this new worshiping community in June 2020. And so what it was to kind of revision what this ministry could look like when, church planning is already very difficult and not what's natural. And then to have this whole other environment that no one is prepared for, no one is trained for. And it sounds like we both very similarly during that time used it to kind of like plant seeds and build individual relationships. So that during that time, it was kind of not a respite because it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of tilling and planting seeds and beginning of relationships, so that now, 2 years after, we are starting to see some of the fruits of all of that, very intentional planting and relationship building.
Yeah, correct. And in my case, we started in Mission, which is the McAllen metro area is composed of 3 cities. It's McAllen proper, and then you have Mission, which is smaller town, and then Edinburgh. So this is my third try, my third city, and the third time in which I have tried to launch this, because we started in Mission, COVID came and we couldn't do anything. Then I moved to do ministry in Edinburgh, and I was making some inroads, but then the building and the space that I was promised to have access to after 6-7 months of working hard to develop relationship in the community and with the people in that building, which was a Lutheran church, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we have a new pastor, and I don't think it will be a good fit." so, so I have been a nomad, and it has been quite of a challenge. So this is the third location in which we have tried to launch this new ministry, and we are 3 weeks old. So talking about
congratulations. Well, it just shows you how fragile that momentum is. Like looking at your second church plant and seeing how you had spent months and very intentional times building this community, and that momentum was building, and what you needed was a partnership. And because you weren't supported, that momentum, which is so fragile, fell apart at that time, which is so disappointing and really hard to see all the work that you've put in and intentionality and that momentum. It's hard. Momentum, I don't think people acknowledge how fragile momentum is, especially in church planning.
Yes, correct. And then these other things, church planning, and especially these crises, health crisis in which we find ourselves, because in order to combat and in order to keep yourself from being infected or exercise the health procedures and protocols, you have to be isolated. And come on, a church planter being isolated, the nature of the work is to be out and about, meeting people, getting to know folks, getting to know the lay of the land. And then we were called and we were told to shelter in place. So that has been the journey. So what about your faith journey? And obviously we asking question, feel free to pass or.
I will not talk about faith today. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. My faith journey is pretty uneventful. I was raised in the church, literally. My dad was a pastor, and so I grew up.
Okay. Are you a called PK?
I'm a PK. Yeah. And I had a very positive church experience growing up. I loved the church. I had really amazing experiences with communities that uplifted and invested in me, and made me feel seen and really celebrated my talents. They allowed me to preach from the pulpit when I was in high school. I did internships. Wow. When I went to college, faith was still very active in my life, but I became more active in interfaith. And so I went to college. I studied abroad in the Middle East. Then I graduated and traveled and started teaching. I did ESL in Brooklyn. So I taught high school.
Oh, New Yorker.
Yeah. So when you were in New York, I was going to ask you where, and studied in Bangladesh, but I really felt like I loved the work that I was doing as a teacher. It was really important work. But I felt that part of my vocation, the faith aspect was missing. I consider my faith to be one of the most beautiful things about me, and the fact that I wasn't able to explore that holistically led me to seminary. So I went to seminary. I had no idea what I was doing. I applied, saw what happened, and I was accepted. And the 3 years there were very formative. And that's where I learned that I love learning, and I love academia. I didn't want to be an academic. And so I was able to find a vocation here and a call here in campus ministry, where I can still be part of that environment, but still be very intentional in education, but also in building relationships and cultivating these spaces for faith. Yeah.
Wow, you have the best of both worlds, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's awesome. Again, very interesting journey. You said it was uneventful, but I can see a lot of things happening and contributing to the wealth of experience, knowledge, expertise, and perspective that you bring to ministry, because it is such a great privilege, I would say, to be able to travel and be exposed to other cultures, other peoples, and other faith as well. And I think that enhance your vision, your ministry, and your ability to see things not just from a very narrow perspective, but have a bigger, wider vision of what the world and what people are all about. That's interesting. Well, again, mine is kind of a very boring.
No.
I remember I had, and you mentioned high school, being able to preach when you were in high school. I do remember being very intentionally in sharing my faith with my high school classmates. Obviously, I think every high schooler is made fun of, especially if he or she tries to share his or her faith and you are in a secular environment. So I had a hard time because, kids were mean to me. However, they loved, because professors, we have the cafeteria lady who was a Christian. I was somewhat her favorite. I don't know, but she will give me extra cookies.
You have to be a good person for the cafeteria women to love you. They don't do that for anyone because they see everyone.
So she will give me, So she will give me extra stuff, and my friends, they will capitalize on that, and they will be nice with me during the recess period, just so I can get them the cookies or the goodies that I will get from the cafeteria lady. But I always felt this call to ministry, but peer pressure, perhaps family telling me, well, you should go to med school or to law school, whatever. But in my heart, I always felt that I was called to ministry. So I went to college, went to law school, but never quite felt at home. And I was in the New York area. I was doing a little bit of ministry. Well, not a little bit, but doing ministry with a social component, social justice component, as part of the ministry of the church. And I was working, what they call it, commissioner lay pastor, which is a particular training that folks, leaders in the church received, and they are able to engage in this role of pastoral ministry or parish ministry, but kind of limited to that parish or to that presbytery. And I reached a point in which I said I really need to go to seminary, and I went to Austin Seminary, Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, and from there I came down here. But
I was about to ask you, that's what brought you to Texas?
Yes, that is correct. Because a zillion years ago, I applied to Princeton. I was admitted to Princeton, but I was not able to because I got married and I started raising a family. So I became a shepherd of my own family instead of a shepherd to God's flock. And I have to delay that dream for many years. But one of the things that I said, that although I have been involved in the life of the church, not as a pastor, but in one way or the other, fully involved in the life of the church, even though I was not those years that I was not working in the church. I was working in a secular environment, but really, really involved in the life of the church. So that's why I said I have been and I have felt called to this ministry since I was really, really young.
Yeah. What was the moment for you when you knew that it was time to go back to the church leadership? You said that a while ago you had been admitted to seminary, then you went and raised your family, was involved in the church, but also had a secular job. What was the moment when you're like, okay, the timing's right, let's do this?
I was trying to practice law in the New York metro area, and I did an internship in a real estate law firm. Mm-hmm. And the senior partner, or the owner of the law firm, one afternoon he comes to me and said, I think you either open your own law firm or you just find a lawyer who might be a pastor, because I don't think you're cut out to become and be a lawyer. Because my thing was always, how can I help? How can I solve this person's problem? And the last thing in my mind was to build the person, to talk about the professional fees, to talk about what might cost that legal issue that has been brought to my attention. And for me, always has been, how can I be of help? How can I provide and put the skills that I have?
Yeah, business is a business, like this, it's their people that you're interacting with. It's,
correct.
People in your community and your job. It's not just.
And I have I struggle with that aspect. So, and then I felt, I just need to kind of dive in full-fledged into this, because I have been trying to do this 1 foot in the secular world, 1 foot on the ministry world. And at the end of the day, I'm not satisfied because I am not fully invested in neither. So, and that's when I kind of realized all the catalyst, I would say. Yeah. You mentioned the exciting things, all the things that you've been doing in NOLA. Is that what you call it, NOLA?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any particular lesson that you would like to share with folks who are thinking about church planting?
Yeah.
Are thinking about a new church development, a new ministry? What is it, that few things that you can share with those folks out there?
Yeah, definitely. I have lots of advice. I'm an ideas person. I have so many ideas in my head. There are so many things that I want to do, but you can't do them by yourself. And you really need to have a partnership, either like in your community or with someone else to do ministry with. Because if it's just you constantly organizing yourself and you're the one that's like the point person on everything, it's just not going to be as fruitful as if you have community leaders involved. And so I know specifically it can be made larger here on a campus ministry. But if like the students aren't invested and if there isn't student leadership, it's just not going to be as successful. And so my first year, I, came out swinging. I had programming every single day, and I had an idea for this day, an idea for that day. And I thought they were amazing ideas. And I think that in a context of someone else leading them, they could have been very successful. But what I've learned the most this year is that if I want events to be successful, if I want programming to go well, if I want investment from the students have to be the leaders on it. And it sounds so simple and so obvious, but it's, sometimes as like the director, as the pastor, as the leader, you often think that you're the one that has to provide that leadership, or you have to be the one that's leading the students. But the more the students are individually leading things, the more successful they're being. They're inviting their friends, they're letting people know about it. People are more likely to show up for their fellow student than me.
I think, well, thank you. Those are great advices. And I will concur with you because, again, we just are in the early stages of this. And mine is a community, kind of a subdivision. And this is in this part of town, this part of Texas, the populations are very sparse. So you have a subdivision here, a couple of farms, and then another subdivision. So, but I concur with you when you said that you need to, even though you might have great ideas, but it's important to involve the leaders and find out those leaders, because they will be able to have some sort of an influence on others. And those are your ideas, but somehow or some way they have an sphere of influence of other fellow students.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying about when you first started your ministry, that being really intentional about meeting people one-on-one and figuring out who's in your community and building those relationships is so important. Because you can't start off with all of these programmings, because then it's just you doing it. Like, you really need that introductory period of building relationships and finding people so that you know who these people are, you know who can be leaders, you know who can be partners, and then you introduce the programming. And it's far more successful than if you just come out swinging with programming.
Yeah, and to that end, one of the things that I have also learned is that folks might not welcome, I don't want to say reject, but I will say not welcome your ideas is simply not because it's not a good idea, but because it's not theirs. It has not come from them. However, if we find a way to cultivate and to create an environment in which those folks that we are cultivating and hopefully developing, those ideas are coming from that group, they see as their ideas, and they will have vested interest. As some folks said, they will have skin in the game because it is something that they're passionate about.
Yeah, they're invested.
Correct. And in my particular region here in the Valley, folks, one of the things that I have learned is that it takes time for them to trust someone who has come from elsewhere. And listen, I have come from the Dominican Republic, from New York, from Austin. All those places for the folks down here is, you coming from elsewhere to tell us what to do. Because traditionally, the folks from San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, they come and that has been my experience personally, and also I've been told. But folks from here, they resent others coming from elsewhere to tell them what to do. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's so important to get acquainted with what is the culture, and not to impose your ideas, because otherwise you might be shutting yourself on the foot, because they might reject your idea, not necessarily because it is a bad idea, but because they might see that you're coming to impose on them. Mm-hmm. And you might run into that. Another thing that I have learned is, do not rush anything, any program. Get acquainted and become familiar with your intended community, which is really somewhat similar to having your own idea and trying to run with it. Any other pitfall that we should avoid?
Yeah, no, I think what you're saying is really important to remember, that these things take time, and it can be really hard when you're starting off, because you have so much energy and you have so much vision and so much excitement, but then also just being realistic with yourself about the actual time frame. You could be like, I want like 10 people in this Bible study every single Monday. And you can get there, but what does it mean to be okay with only 2 or 3 at the beginning, and realizing that you're building those very intimate relationships with these people, and you're becoming someone really important in their life, and they're going to want to share that later on. And so then, in 5 years, that Bible study can have 10 to 20 people because of that very intentional time that you took that first year, instead of just like giving up and walking away because it wasn't your immediate expectations. So,
Reverend Zoe, what are you doing Wednesday night? Well, what you're telling me, it is precisely what I've been thinking of late. Because, yes, we have this passion and this vision and these dreams to have a big group. Yeah. And to get to that goal. And there is a plethora of reasons why we want to have this big group, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, the majority of the people, they meet success depending upon the number of people that you have in a given program. However, that fellow who is behind me, he used to say, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he used to say that our call as Christians is not to be successful, but to remain faithful. Mm-hmm. And you've been preaching Bonhoeffer in that thing that you just say, now you're my favorite people, because
success.
I love Bonhoeffer. And what you're telling me is to cultivate these 3-4 people and develop and grow them and nurture them. Mm-hmm. And it is not about quantity. Mm-hmm. It is about the quality that you are able to cultivate in this group. And that's really important. Again, I am mindful that numbers are very attractive.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Because so much of our world is measured by that. I mean, like, that's what like capitalism teaches us, right? Is that the more you have, like, the more successful you are, and the more powerful you are, and the more deserving you are. But that's not the reality, right? Like,
correct. And we as a church planter have to preach to ourselves and make that part of our mission, that our goal is to really develop and create an environment where people can develop meaningful relationship with God and with one another. And this is so important to me in my ministry. My relationship with God must be reflected with my fellow human beings, because
absolutely,
when I was a little kid, we used to do like it was a praise song. The love of God is wonderful, is higher than me, wider than me, deeper than me, something like that. But it is my relationship with God must consist with my relationship with my fellow human beings. It's like an L, vertical and then horizontal. So it is really, really important. Things that works. What about things that works?
Yeah, I think the things that work are the ones where I can be supporting other people in their ideas. And so like looking at the relationships that we're building with these people one-on-one, I have a student who's very passionate about volunteering. And, she wants volunteer projects and she wants to be a leader. And so I'm like, okay, organize one. Like, you need food, you need rides, you need water, I'll get them. But like you organize this volunteer project. And she did, and it was great, but if I were to organize it, then I'm texting everyone, hey, are you going to come? Like, remember this, remember that. And if I'm doing all the legwork on that, then it's not going to have the same effect as if that student is organizing and she's having the leadership of that service day. So yeah, I can't stress it enough that like the more that the students are the ones in charge or the ones organizing, the more successful they are.
Yeah, and what I can sense there, at least this is one of my observations, right? Yeah. Is you empowering this student so that he or she can take ownership of this idea and feel supported by you and encouraged by you, that he or she will know this is my baby, or this is my dream, this is something that I invested in. That's another great thing.
And that's what I want to be for these students. One of the biggest lessons that I learned when I was in college is that there is so much opportunity out there. It's just people don't know how to find it. And so some of the first weeks of every school year is me sitting down with students being like, okay, what scholarships can we apply to? What grants can we apply to? Like, what are the things that you want this year and how can we vision that? And so creating those opportunities of really sitting down and listening to what it is that these students want from their college experience, what these students want from their community experience, is really important. And then being able to connect them. And that's where that network of knowing people is so important. The first 2 or 3 years that we both spent meeting people is so important. I want this type of job. Okay, well, I know that this church is hiring, or I really would like to do this volunteer thing. Oh, well, I know that this church does a day of service. Why don't we connect you with them? And so being that network for the person and realizing that like we ourselves are church planters, but we're all part of this greater Christian community and we're better together. And like, we really are just so much more connected when we're not these isolated things.
Oh, are you a member of Mission Presbytery? Because that's our mantra, better together. So your second time, you're my favorite people.
Oh, all right. Okay. What do I have to do to get 3? Let's go.
I hope you've been enjoying this episode of Sunspots, a region of the Presbyterian Church USA, We are Presbyterians in Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Texas, with dynamic and hopeful ministry happening in the name of Jesus Christ. If you have a good news story or an exceptional ministry to be highlighted, send that good news to Sunspots at synodsun.org. Now, back to the show.
You're talking about the wonderful partnership that you have with the different churches where they support, cook meals, and are really, really in partnership with you. For folks like me, I mean, I'm being granted, we're just starting, but it's been a little bit of a struggle to find willing partners, partners that see this ministry as their own, as something that they need to care for, to support, because at the end of the day, we as a Presbyterian, we are the connectional church. We are all in this together, and your success is my success, and your pain is also my pain. So what can I do to be able to have those partnerships that you so wonderfully have been able to muster and to get?
Yeah, I think so. Starting off, I always ask churches to cook us a meal, because I feel like churches, if the first conversation is not about money, they'll open up to you. Right? If you go to them and be like, it would be really helpful if you could just cook me a meal, and I want you to come here and I want you to see our community and be a part of it. And they come and the meal's good, everyone's talking, and then you're building those relationships. All right, can I get coffee with you next week? How else can you be involved? Well, we have a work day. Can you help us with our building? And then once those relational those relationships are established, then it looks into more how can you be more faithfully invested in me? Well, my fence blew over in Hurricane Ida. Can you either support me in paying someone to build me a new fence, or can you fix it yourself? Help me. I have these problems. How can I solve them? And really putting it into those other people's power. We're in relationship. We are ministry friends. We have a problem. My fence blew over. How do I solve this? And when you give them that power of being how can you solve that? I have an idea. They're more likely to get creative or give you the investment that you need to do those different types of things. One thing that I really try to instill in my community and my students is that we are not unique, and that when they leave college, look at all of these churches who support us, and you can go there. When your time is done with us, look at all these amazing other communities that have supported us and loved us. And the church is wonderful and expansive. And no matter who you are or what part of the journey you're on, there's a place for you. There's a church for you. There's a small group for you. And so what does it look like to see the diversity of that, and being able to access it through the relationships that we've built from all these other churches?
Well, that's great. That's beautiful. That last part that you said, that you don't want to hold on to those folks that you have been able to cultivate, nurture, nourish, but you are willing to guide them so they can go and see the horizon that you have, that you are pointing out to them, which again, it sounds, and it comes from not only a person who cares for the others, but a person secure of who she is in God's world and kingdom. Because we encounter people who are so narrow-minded that they don't want to give up that person or that leader that he or she has been able to cultivate. And you just, go, because you have done your part in that person's journey. And now is for him or her to find his or her place in the world. So that might be the third reason why you're my favorite people.
Well, thank you. That was really kind. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will also say that I think that is unique to my position too, where like I have a new community every single year, and that is difficult. Like I have new students. I have students going abroad. I have students who are graduating. I have students who are transferring school. So every single year I have a new community. I also think that there is a lot of beauty in a long love, right? Yes. People that you have in your life that you have loved over time, and you've loved every single version of who they are. Yes, we all change. Both of us have just talked about our different careers before we became church planners. You've been a different person so many times, and yet, one of the people who've walked with you through your life is your wife, who has loved every version of you. And so what does it look like to have a church or a community with that consistency and that longevity of being able to love someone for a long time? That's also very beautiful.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. Let me try to bring some sort of a levity. She has put up with me for many, many, many years, which I am so grateful that she's been willing to go this very difficult journey that I have had throughout my entire adult life. I think also one thing, I want to go back to the importance of having the support from either Presbytery leadership or those who are in position of authority within the judicatory or the, whether committees, a local church, or at the Presbytery level, or maybe at the Synod level as well. It is important because, as you said, this is difficult work that requires patience, and it's a lot of trials and errors. I think we try things hoping and praying and working hard that idea, that goal, that project succeed, but there is no guarantee that it would. And if we have people just looking at the watch, this is your third time, so you either get it right or you're out. So might not be.
Well, that's just not how life works, right?
Yes.
That's just unrealistic to see that like someone's going to get it perfect in a certain amount of tries, that like we ourselves, like the kingdom is now, but it's coming. We're working towards things in the future, and like what we know now and what we're doing now is not always going to be sustainable, and it's not always going to be what people need in the future. And I think that's what's so important about these new worshiping communities, is that we are reimagining what people are going to need and reimagining what our church is going to look like. We are, resurrecting these communities. Yes. I always think it's so funny when people are talking about like the church dying and the dead church. And it's just like, but why? Like death isn't the end. Like we're going to fail, right? Like we've both had our programmings fail, but we're both in better positions from that, right? Like we have been able to resurrect our ministries, and we've been able to reimagine what our faith can look like, what our communities can look like, because we've seen that. And we know that when they fail or when they end or when they die, right? We know it's not the end. And that's what makes us Christian, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we preach of the resurrection and the life after, and yet we're so afraid of death. I'm not saying that I am not. What I'm saying is we as a human beings, as a collective. But yeah, you are right. I do believe when you look at this and says, well, we tried our best, but there is no guarantee that we're going to be successful in this or that we do. And I think I find comfort when at the end of the day, even if I am not successful in a particular project, if I have given my very best, and if I have done everything that I could possibly have done, and have thrown myself with love, passion, conviction, integrity, and really with all my energy. And if at the end of the day, obviously there will be the disappointment that I didn't succeed, but I can hold on to them and I say, I did my best. I did not left, or I did not left anything unturned, any stone unturned. And I try my very, very best. And if I was not successful, well, that's fine. But I know that I try and I gave my very best. And I think I find comfort in knowing that, hey, I probably was not successful, but I gave my all.
I mean, I would be careful, like not successful to who, right?
Yeah, correct. Well, again, thinking about, as you said a moment ago or some time ago, about this thing of the success or that people are normally are searching for, put on a pedestal and point out to, oh, he is a successful person, she is a successful. But again, let me repeat myself. This fellow behind me will remind me over and over again, we as Christians are not called to be successful. We are called to be faithful to God. And if we are faithful to wherever I am placed, I think the good Lord will have, will be joyful that I have done and that I have remained faithful in the midst of challenges.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Reverend Zoe, any other thing that you think might be worth sharing with other brothers and sisters that might be thinking about in this exciting ministry of church planting?
Ooh, pressure. Yeah, I would say it's important to have anchors in this process. I think, a lot of our conversation today was success and failure and investment and momentum. And it's really easy when you're constantly thinking and analyzing yourself of, is this good? Is this working? To forget about like yourself and your own truths. And so having people there in your life to be like, no, this, like, you are called to this, or you are doing a good job. You are putting so much effort in, having those people, I think, are really important in this process, because so much of church planting is analyzing yourself and being critical of yourself and your ministry. And it's really important to have those those affirming narratives that, God is working in your life and you are living into your call and this is good.
Yes, indeed. Spiritual directors or coach, or whichever name we might, is really, really important because absolutely there's a lot of pressure. And since we are building something from the ground up, there is now the structure that you have the staff, but you don't have the structure that has been in place for years and years and years. So you are just bringing something, you birthing this new community, and it is really difficult. And you need, as you said, we need those anchors, people who will be there walking with us, reminding us the things that we're doing well and pointed out the things that we might change or do differently, not in a critical fashion, but in a constructive fashion.
In an encouraging way.
Because, yes, correct. Because for the most part, we human beings are very quick to see other people's shortcomings instead of celebrating, uplifting the gifts, the skills, the passions, the love, the commitment that people have. And I think my experience in my life is that when we do that, not only we lift up this person, but also that person is able to not be afraid to try and be a better person in whatever he or she dedicates himself or herself to, because he or she will be coming from a position of strength, knowing that if he or she falls, he will have people there to help him get up, help her get up. And those are really, really important. So, well, thank you so much for that.
Thank you. This is great.
Yes. Well, I'm really, really blessed to know you and share this time with you and learning from you the exciting things that you're doing over there in NOLA.
I don't know. Not be the last time. Like I'm absolutely open if you ever need soundboarding or you need to throw ideas at me.
Yes, absolutely. We do, especially when it comes to dealing with younger people, because again, I was born old.
The youth.
So it will come a time in which, God willing, we will have the challenge of doing youth ministry, and I will be reaching out to you for you to share those experiences dealing with college students, so on and so forth. Well, God bless you, and congratulations on this amazing journey and this amazing ship that you are commanding, along with this group of folks from your area. It's just an extraordinary thing. So I am really blessed to being able to share this time with you and to know that folks, we have folks like you out there changing the world one student at a time.
Well, you can't say everything because now you're taking away the nice things that I was going to say about you. No. It is very.
It's late, Reverend. So
No, but it is so good to see like how we both are church planters, but also the diversity of our calls and the way that they look and manifest, and also just the longevity that you offer to us in the conversation to see like what that different life is taking you. And it's not always a straightforward path, that like you can have different careers and different calls and different communities that all come together and can lead you to this place in a very important way. And I think that that's really important for us to remember, is that like our lives are not straight lines, and that, you know, the different experiences that we have like truly shape us into who we are and make us ready to do God's work. So thank you.
Since you spent some time in Brooklyn, I'm sure you're familiar with a straight, express train that goes from point A to point Z without stopping, or the local one that has many stops and you go impatient. So I think I took the local train.
Well, I lived in Flatbush, so I was just taking the express.
Yes. So wonderful. God bless you. I'm looking forward to having more conversation with you. And from now on, I'm going to be praying for your ministry and looking forward to share some of our experience down the road.
Yeah, this is not the last time, but only the first.
Indeed. May God bless you. And once again, thank you for allowing yourself to share those precious insights of church planting with me and the rest of the folks who are going to be listening to this.
Yeah.
So now you're going to be famous beyond NOLA.
Oh, yeah. We're going to be famous now. That's why I did this, right? Surely we are the most interesting people in our synod. We really cared as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll be praying for you and your community.
Yeah. Thank you. You be well. God bless you. Dios le bendiga.
Bye, friend.
In the Synod of the Son, we believe when we work together across boundaries, we make visible the good news and find wholeness as the body of Christ. In our common calling, we impact lives together. So let's remember to connect with, equip, and empower one another in the name of Jesus Christ, today and every day.